guys, welcome back to my channel. How is everybody doing today? Hopefully everybody is doing well. Sorry I haven't put out a video in a while. It's been probably about a week, if not over a week, 2 weeks. I don't know. It's been a while. I've been busy with work. I've been busy doing stuff. I just haven't really got a chance. But today, we got a blizzard outside. We got a pretty bad blizzard going on, and they decided to actually close my work. I think this is the first time ever in all my working history that I've actually gotten a snow day from work. So I thought that was pretty awesome. So I was like, you know what? Let's make a video. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to go over some movies that take place in winter, and just some movies that from my collection that I kind of like, and ones that I think are kind of worth your time, and has some scenes that I think really brings out the essence of how cold it is wherever the movie takes place. I'm trying to refrain from doing Christmas movies, although I do have 2 Christmas movies on here, just because there's some scenes that I think really do a really good job of bringing out how bitter cold it is. And that's kind of what I'm shooting for in this video. We got a little bit different setup today. I thought, since it's so brutally cold outside and you got a blizzard going on, that I would sit next to the fireplace here. It's only electric, but this thing does put out a good amount of heat. So I'm not sure if if this setup is good or not. This is not something I'm going to do all the time, but I figured for this video it worked kind of good. So, yeah, so we're sitting here. So without further ado, let's get started with these winter movies that I think really bring out the essence of how cold it is and how brutal some winters can be. And I think I have a fitting shirt on, so let's just start with this one. Let's start with The Shining. All right, so we're going to start off this list with Stanley Kubrick's The Shining. I'm probably not going to delve too deep into what these movies are about unless they're ones that people maybe haven't heard of. I got some on here that are very, very famous. And then I do have a few on here that people maybe haven't heard of, and I'll kind of go into those. But most of you have probably seen The Shining by now. If you haven't, definitely check it out. But Stanley Kubrick does a fantastic job of just really showing how brutally cold and desolate and just kind of just downright cold it is in the dead of winter in Colorado, with all of those outside shots. It really does a great job of proving how brutally cold and dangerous it is outside this hotel that they're staying in. So that's the first one on the list. If you haven't seen Stanley Kubrick's The Shining, it's a definite must if you like horror movies. If you're a fan of horror movies, though, I'm sure you've probably seen it. But if you haven't, definitely check it out. All right, guys. Well, next up on the list, we got John Carpenter's The Thing. I mean, even just looking at that front, and you can tell he's got a big old winter jacket on. You can tell that this movie is just taking place in a cold, cold atmosphere. You can even see on the back that winter scene right there. If you've never seen John Carpenter's The Thing, this is definitely another one that you should check out. This one, I'll explain just real quick, and basically what it is they find like, I believe it's like an alien type creature that's frozen out in Antarctica. It's a team of, I think so, like 12 people out there doing some research, and they find this frozen alien type creature that comes thawed and wreaks havoc. This movie is fantastic. If you've never seen it, definitely check it out. And this is another one too where it's brutally cold. They do a great job of just showing how uncomfortable it is outside. How like isolated they really are, because they're really kind of in the middle of nowhere out in Antarctica. And this is a fantastic movie. This is a great one to throw in on a nice stormy, blizzardy night. Check it out. Next up, we have the first of the, I believe, 2 Christmas movies that I put on here, and that's Krampus. And this movie, Krampus, if you don't know who that is basically the anti-Santa Claus. And this is a movie where the young boy in this movie loses his Christmas spirit, and Krampus shows up and turns everything into like a dark blizzard type atmosphere. Very hard to see. This is another one too that just proves how chilling and cold and brutal it is once you step foot outside when Krampus is around. Yeah, this movie's really cool. Definitely check it out. I usually only watch this one around Christmas, but on a day like today, this would be a good fitting movie as well. Next up, we have Rob Reiner's Misery. This movie's great if you've never seen it. Just real quick, James Caan is in it and Kathy Bates. James Caan plays a author who gets in a car accident on a stormy, wintry day. He's heading somewhere and gets saved by Kathy Bates, who I believe is a nurse or was a nurse in this movie, but she's also a crazed fan of his books, and she basically holds him hostage and forces him to write a new a book, these misery books. And it is fantastic. James Caan is great, but Kathy Bates shines. This is another really good movie to throw in on a cold, wintry night or even day, preferably night though. Next, we're going to delve into the second of the Christmas movies, and that's Gremlins. Now, the reason I put Gremlins on here is just because there's lots of scenes when they're outside walking around that I think just really does a great job of showing how cold it is out. And I mean, it's one of those movies when you just watch it, you just kind of get chilled to the bone just watching it because it just looks just very uncomfortable and cold outside. And if you've never seen Gremlins, this movie's great. It's from the 80s. And they start off with these little creatures. I forget what they're called. I completely forget what they're called. But anyway, if you feed them after midnight or you give them water, they turn into these kind of just grotesque gremlin creatures. And this movie's a lot of fun. This is one I usually only throw in around Christmas time though, but you could throw it in on a nice winter day, but it does have a lot of elements of Christmas. So, yeah, this is definitely a good holiday movie for sure. All right, guys, next up we're going to delve into a Harold Ramis film, stars Bill Murray, and that's Groundhog's Day. Groundhog's Day, basically, he just keeps living the same day over and over again in Punxsutawney. And, yeah, he gets stuck there because of a blizzard, and he has to keep living the same day over and over and over again. This movie's hilarious. It's awesome. And, yeah, the whole thing takes place during winter. There's a snowstorm in the beginning that keeps him there. But, yeah, a lot of activities are done outside. You can tell how cold it is. It's just... yeah, this is just a great winter movie for sure. Definitely check out Groundhog Day. The next movie we're going to delve into is actually one of the only films that I actually kind of like by Kevin Smith. There's only a few Kevin Smith movies that I'm a fan of, and one of them that I'm a big fan of is Zack and Marie Make a Porno. I thought this movie was awesome. I thought it was absolutely hysterical. But this is another movie too that takes place in the dead of winter. You have Zack and Marie, and they don't really have a whole lot of money, so they decide that they're going to do an amateur porn film and try to make some money. And their heat, I believe, gets turned off at one point, and they got candles lit. They're trying to stay warm. The heat in their car doesn't work. I mean, you can just tell when they're sitting in the car how bitterly cold it is, and I can relate to that. I remember being younger and having a car that wasn't the greatest, would take half an hour to heat up and all that kind of stuff. And this movie does a really good job of just kind of showing how cold it is and how uncomfortable it is outside. And especially some of those scenes when they're hanging out in the car where I think the heater actually doesn't work or works very poorly. And you can just tell how brutally cold it is. Yeah, this movie is great. It's absolutely hilarious. In my opinion, it's one of Kevin Smith's best films. Yeah, like I said, I'm not a big Kevin Smith fan, but this one is definitely worth your time. All right, guys, next we're going to delve into a film by Roman Emmerich. I think you say his name. He did like Independence Day. More recently, I think he did, was it Moonfall? Was that the name of it? But he also did a movie called The Day After Tomorrow back in the early 2000s. This movie's kind of fun. It's not a great movie by any means, but basically there's just a shift in in the weather, and all this crazy weather starts happening. New York gets flooded out, and then everything freezes. I mean, you can tell just by looking at this poster here and some of the other posters that they put out how cold this movie is supposed to be. But yeah, there's lots of scenes where they're walking around in the snow. There's scenes where they're in a library that's completely frozen over. And this movie will definitely chill you to the bone. There's a lot of scenes where you can watch this in the dead of summer and you're like, oof, man, ugh. You get shivers because you just know how brutally cold and unpleasant it is. But yeah, this movie's a lot of fun. It's not great, but it is fun. Definitely check it out if you've ever seen The Day After Tomorrow. So next we're going to delve into a movie that I think is probably the most winter movie on this list, and that is Quentin Tarantino's The Hateful Eight. Every scene of this movie is just chillingly cold. The whole thing takes place during a blizzard, kind of leading up to a blizzard, and just every shot, he really does a great job of making everything just look so brutally cold. And who knows, I think it was probably practical. It was probably all shot on location, so it probably was actually brutally cold when they filmed it. But this movie's fantastic. The whole movie takes place during a blizzard, and there's a bunch of guys that all meet at a same location, the same kind of, it's almost like a bar. And everybody's a little bit, no one quite as anybody else figured out, and you can tell the tensions are high between these characters, and you're trying to figure out what's going on between these all these characters. I think it's 8 because it's The Hateful Eight, so I think it's 8 characters. But this movie is fantastic. If you get a chance, it's super long. I think Netflix actually broke it up into like 2 or 3 parts. And it makes it a lot easier to watch other than watching it in like one sitting. They broke it up into it's like 2 or 3 sections, I think, maybe even 4. And it makes it much easier to watch than watching it all as like one straight movie. But yeah, this movie will definitely want you to be close to a fire and nice and warm under a blanket when you're watching it, because this movie looks brutally cold. But yeah, this movie's fantastic. Definitely check out The Hateful Eight. All right, guys. Well, we're gonna delve into like maybe four movies now that are maybe lesser known. All those other ones I did were pretty well known movies, but I got 4 here now that a lot of people might not know as well. And these first 2 movies actually I think would make a really good double feature. So we're going to talk about them together here. But the first one is The Wolf of Snow Hollow. This movie was surprisingly good. I picked it up because I loved the cover art. I think it was only like $12, and I just took a shot on it. It was a blind buy, and I really enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. And this movie is basically about someone or something is killing people in this small little mountain town, and they can't figure out what it is, if it's something supernatural, if it's actually a person, and they go and they kind of have to investigate and figure out what is going on in this town. And this is another movie, too, that every scene just looks brutally cold. They do a great job of just making you feel like you're in this mountain town in the middle of winter, and it's really cold, and they're trying to figure this who's causing these murders. A lot of scenes take place outside. It's always snowing, and yeah, this movie is fantastic. Now, the next movie is one that I think would pair really well with that last movie, and that is Werewolves Within. This movie is pretty much kind of the same concept of there's some weird stuff, not so much like murders really happening, but like there's small animals that are being killed. There's just very weird stuff that's going on in this small little town. And this town is filled with extremely eccentric characters. And they bring in this new guy right here. He's the new local sheriff right there. And he kind of tries to figure out what's going on, what is causing all of these weird occurrences that are happening in this town. And everybody kind of seems a little off at times, and he's not really sure who he can and cannot trust. And by the way, this girl here, who's the male person, I believe, that's the girl from, I think it's the Verizon commercials. And I'll be honest with you, she is fantastic in this movie. I had to look it up. I was like, is that the girl from the Verizon commercials? I think it's Verizon. It's one of those phone companies. And it was. I looked it up and I was like, oh, wow. And she is really, really good in this. I was really surprised. But yeah, that movie and this movie, these two would make a great double feature on a cold, snowy night. Because, yeah, this is another one that does a great job of just making you just kind of cold to the core. They're always outside, it's snowing, and it's just very, very cold looking film. They do a really good job of that. But yeah, definitely check this one out, and check out the Wolf of Snow Hollow. Be a great double feature. Next, we're going to delve into a movie by Robert Altman, who is one of my all-time favorite directors, and that's McCabe and Mrs. Miller. This movie is a Western, and it stars Warren Beatty and Julie Christie. It's not really a standard Western. It's a little unorthodox in its style. And basically, Warren Beatty comes to this small little mining town, and he wants to open up a very classy whorehouse. And the whole movie, I mean, you can tell too. I mean, look at this. Look at that fur coat he's got on there. I mean, you can just tell that it's cold in there. But not every scene in this movie takes place in the winter. But there are a good amount of scenes that do, and the scenes that do, they really do a great job of making it look really, really cold. And on top of it, there's kind of a shootout gun scene, like a gunfight scene at the end during a snowstorm, and it's knee-high snow, and that's when you get the scenes where it's just like, oh man, I'm glad I'm curled up on a couch with a blanket in front of a fire while watching this, because that looks like it could really suck. And there's just lots of scenes like that towards the end of the movie that are brutally cold. But yeah, this is a really good movie. This is one of my favorite Westerns of all time. And it's not like a lot of other Westerns. It's very unorthodox, but definitely worth your time. Next, we're going to delve into a movie by the Coen brothers, and it's not Fargo. I actually don't own Fargo. I think I did at one point on Blu-ray, but I don't know what happened to it. And I'm not going to rebuy it because I think this year it's getting a 4K release or sometime soon. So I'll just wait for the 4K. So it's not Fargo, but that's another good winter, cold winter movie. But the one that I'm talking about is Inside Llewyn Davis. And this movie, it's basically about a folk singer in the 1960s. He's kind of always down and out on his luck. He's trying to get his music heard. He's trying to get a record made. And this movie, it's not every scene takes place like in the winter when it's brutally cold. But a lot of the scenes that do, like you see him walking through like cold winter landscapes, and you can just tell how cold and miserable it is. But then even the scenes where there's not a lot of snow, they do a great job of color correcting it, and they give it this look where the whole movie just looks cold. It's very kind of just blah kind of colors. It's very cold kind of colors, kind of bluish, like a lot of like grays and blue. And it really just gives the whole movie this overall sense of just coldness. And then the scenes that do take place in winter are that much colder, or look that much colder. And you're just glad you're not where he is. You're glad you're inside a warm house watching the movie instead of actually living the movie. But yeah, this movie's great. This is a Coen Brothers movie that not a lot of people have seen or heard of. This one is well worth your time. This one is actually, I think, a top 5 Coen Brothers for me. I love this movie. All right, guys, last but not least, this is not really a winter movie, but the beginning scenes, they do a great job. Takes place in I forget what planet it is, but it is ice cold. There's snow everywhere. And I don't have it individually. I just have it in this set, but I'm talking about Empire Strikes Back, which I have in this 4K box set. Empire Strikes Back, that whole beginning scene, you have to admit that it's just brutally cold. The scenes where Luke gets stranded out in the cold, the scenes where he's in with the snow monster. I mean, it just, every bit of it, they do a great job of just like showing how much it would suck being in that situation. Even the scenes when they're inside, like their headquarters, their ICE headquarters. I mean, even those scenes inside look very, very cold. Some of those scenes where Han Solo and Leia are walking through, and it just even looks cold. That whole beginning sequence is just ice cold. And for those reasons, I had to put it on this list. And by the way, it's probably the best Star Wars movie, at least in my opinion. I love Empire Strikes Back. It's fantastic. But yeah, those beginning scenes, every time I see them, they chill me to the bone. But yeah, it's definitely worth your time if you've never seen Empire Strikes Back. But well, that's it, guys. That's all I got for you today. I just thought I'd do this little video and kind of talk about some movies that are in my collection that take place during the winter that I think always kind of chilled me to the bone, that I think are worth your time. I figured, it's crappy out. It's we're getting a bunch of snow and kind of blizzard type conditions. Not so much right now, but it was. And I got this snow day. Normally I don't ever get a snow day. So I was like, let's take advantage. Let's do a video and let's talk some winter movies. So, but yeah, guys, that's it. That's all I got for you. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up. Let me know you guys like what I'm doing. Like, share, comment, subscribe, all that fun stuff. And I will see you guys in the next video. And you know what? Thanks for watching. You guys are amazing as always. And hey, guys, if you're in a cold climate, stay warm out there. I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care. Bye.